What's going on, pre-Chiro students? This is the pre-Chiro podcast. Today we have a Chiro student connection. I'm your host, Dr. Ben, and today we have the opportunity to hear from somebody out at Parker University in Dallas, Texas, Chiro student Dr. to be, Kylie Trower. Can you kind of just get us started by introducing yourself, sharing a little bit about what your background was before chiropractic school, how you kind of discovered chiropractic and got yourself on this path?
I think I have a not super unique story, but how quick it kind of happened is a little unique. My name's Kylie Trower. For those of you listening, pardon my voice. I don't normally sound like this, but I actually wanted to be a doctor my entire life, and my idea of a doctor was really I'd fallen into orthopedic surgery, is what I had kind of decided on. I kind of played sports and had sports injuries growing up, and that was just kind of where I felt, I guess, called to, or what felt like it was going to work out for me. I kind of wanted to work with pediatrics for a while and do some pediatric orthopedics. But I got through high school, went to college. I was pre-med all through college, graduated with a pre-med degree. And applying to medical school was still my plan. And I did. I took the MCAT twice, spent a lot of money applying to different schools. And it just never seemed to be the right time. So I graduate.
Can you key in, not to interrupt you, but I would love to kind of segment out your story. And let's just key in on being a pre-med student, studying for the MCATs. Can you reflect on like what the culture of pre-med was, what it was like to be a pre-med student? Did you feel like you were supported by your peers? Did you feel like there were a lot of resources there to really guide you and support you in developing yourself before medical school? And also, a lot of people fall back on chiropractic. I'm curious, were you actually qualified to go to medical school and you chose to go to chiropractic school instead, or was this a fallback option?
Yeah, absolutely. So I first want to say I don't feel like it was a fallback option, and I'll kind of get a little bit into that. For me, and where I found myself searching for med school, is actually that I didn't even know what chiropractic was. I didn't even know chiropractic existed. I had never been to a chiropractor. My parents had been, I think my mom had never been adjusted. My dad had been once after a car wreck in his, at that point, 45 years of life. And so chiropractic was just non-existent in my world. So I knew that I wanted to serve people, and medical school and being a doctor in that sense, an MD or a DO, mainly a DO, was the only thing that I knew. Didn't even not even friends of family that were chiropractors, like literally no concept of what a chiropractor was. As far as being supported through school, my family was super supportive of it. Of course, they wanted me to be a doctor and like all the things that come with that. And it was never like this competition with chiropractic. Like I said, like chiropractic just did not exist in my world. School was okay. I was qualified to go to medical school. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I was kind of an average applicant. That's kind of the thing about medical school is, I think there are a lot of people who think that they want to go to medical school, and it's super competitive in the sense of they make it pretty hard to get in. And not to say that it's just different than getting into chiropractic school. But I was qualified. It was definitely where I feel like my biggest challenge is that I was not following my purpose, and that's what made it hard. And that's kind of, not to kind of brush over that, but transitioning into how I got into chiropractic. Because actually I was kind of thinking about this, and what I wanted to talk about a little bit was like medical school was hard, and chiropractic, or trying to get in, was hard, and like trying to follow that path was like super hard and defeating. Getting into chiropractic, applying and getting in was a little bit of an easier process, but like chiropractic school is not easy. Like it is hard as well. We are learning and creating this lifestyle to be doctors just as much as an MD or DO. But the difference for me was that the hard for medical school always felt kind of hopeless and defeating, and the hard of chiropractic was hopeful and promising. And that was kind of the difference. So for me, I graduated, decided I was going to take a year off. I got a full-time job, and actually started dealing with some of my own health issues. And they were very like hormone endocrine system based. So they weren't like joint and back pain or anything like that, which people typically go to chiropractors for right at the start anyway. And I had been to a couple of doctors. And I had also I'd worked in the hospital setting. So I was a nurse aide. And then I also got to work in surgery as a surgical assistant. And that also really brought attention to me of the kind of machine that a hospital and how surgeries work. And not saying all doctors are like that. I don't want that to come across, but I just also kind of had no idea. It took me becoming an adult and putting myself in that situation to understand what I was potentially getting myself into. But I had an experience. I went to the doctor. It was actually my OBGYN, and she was like, listen, the only thing I can do for you at this point is give you birth control. And that's about all I know to do, to try. And I'm like, you're a doctor. Like, you're supposed to be able to help me and give me guidance on this. And I had surgery. We had done tests, like all these different things. And she was like, I don't know what else to tell you. So I walked out of her door, and I haven't talked to her since. My best friend actually works for a chiropractic office. Well, at that time, she was seeing her as she was pregnant, and she was seeing this chiropractor as a patient. Dr. Lacey and Colton Neville in Tulsa, Oklahoma at Free Spirit Chiropractic. A little shameless plug there for them. So in January, at the end of January in 2020, I went to go see them. And really the thing that changed for me was like they listened to me. They really sat down. I remember sitting across the table from Dr. Lacey, and just her attention to me as a person, not as a patient, was what changed the game for me. And, she was honest with me, and she was like, listen, chiropractic can really help you here. And I'd like to help you with that. It's not going to be a quick fix, but we're going to help your body help itself, basically. So I had my first adjustment January of 2020. Immediately, I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. February of 2020, I kind of marinated on it. I remember in March, I told my parents. In the very beginning of April, I actually applied, and I was going to start for the next term, which would have been September of 2020. So I applied, and I got a call from the advisor, and he was like, hey, this is the middle of COVID. There's a trimester starting completely online in 3 weeks. Do you want in on it? And it took me about 5 minutes to decide that I was going to start chiropractic school in 3 weeks. And so my experience of my first adjustment to starting chiropractic school was about 4 months time span. And that's how quick it happened. For me, it was that I fell in line with my purpose. And that's kind of what I meant earlier with chiropractic school is hard. Learning chiropractic, figuring out how you believe in chiropractic. My why came pretty easy because I saw firsthand what it did for me as a patient in a really short amount of time. But it's felt so, there's always been that hope and that promising that everything that's hard that I'm going through and I'm pushing through, and the tests and boards, retaking boards, just all those things that seem to kind of want to knock me down. There's always been that hope, and the growth has become so obvious pretty quickly. Whereas before, I constantly felt like I was fighting against something. I was pushing against, I never felt hopeful that I was going to be a doctor when I was pursuing a DO degree, a doctorate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's falling into chiropractic, that's what shifted. So it is hard. And I think it's hard in different ways for people. But when you're in alignment with what your purpose is, essentially it's like it can be hard without a purpose or it can be hard with a purpose. And that's where I find myself now, is that this is hard and I'm getting through it and I'm working through it and it's hard work. But I know what the end goal is. So anyway, that's how I found chiropractic.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to skip over that medical school part. But I think it's just a matter of finding what's made for you.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack right there. The first thing that I want to just kind of emphasize that you said was that it's really hard to get into medical school. There's not a lot of excitement going on
Mm-hmm.
as to why you're going to medical school. It's just all about getting into medical school, and that's the focus.
Yeah.
Chiropractic school is very easy to get into, but
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to develop yourself into a chiropractor once you get into chiropractic school.
Right.
So we got a listener that just asked the question of which school did you decide to go to. So I guess that's a great transition as to asking you, why did you choose the school? Obviously, it was convenient for you to start in 3 weeks, but did you look at other schools? What was important to you? Was it recommended to you by that chiropractor that you had seen to go to this school that you're at now? And can you kind of just speak about like what that quick transition was of preparing to go to chiropractic school? You said there was only 4 months between getting adjusted and starting.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just like really key in on that really important transition time?
Yeah, for sure. So really the important thing to know is being pre-med, I had already met all the prerequisites. So that's kind of the other thing that made the transition fairly easy, at least for me. If you are somebody who's in I don't even know, some other degree, like there are the prerequisites to get into chiropractic school. That was easy. That transition was easy for me because I already had the degree in pre-med and there was a lot of overlap in the classes that I needed for school and that I had already taken with medical school in mind. As far as choosing Parker, I'm actually from Oklahoma. And so it was 3 hours from home. And that was kind of what sold me on it. It was going to be easy enough to travel if I needed to. I actually commuted for a while and only traveled down for the classes and lived at home as long as I could. But in all honesty, I didn't really look at any other schools. Parker was recommended to me by those chiropractors I started care with. And then also, once I had kind of decided on chiropractic, I reached out to a couple chiropractors and just talked to them. And they also went to Parker. If I'm being totally honest, I probably could have done a little bit more research. But I also believe that I'm exactly where I need to be. I think the beautiful thing about what chiropractic schools have is that they're fairly spread out. There aren't very many, but they are spread out. And so really wherever you do want to go, you probably have an option to be in that area. My two options were Kansas City, Cleveland, or being in Dallas. And I tend to want to be warmer when I can. So the 3 hours south was better for me. I have some family and friends that live here as well. And so I'm a small town girl at heart. And so that made the transition a lot easier to just be as close to home as I could. So.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the biggest surprises that you've encountered now in chiropractic school? Kind of share how far into the program you are now. When you first got to school, what were some of the things that you were maybe surprised by? What were some of the things that you were challenged or frustrated
Mhm.
by? And then also, like, what have you gravitated towards as a student?
Yeah. So I was really fortunate in that the chiropractors that I got started with at Free Spirit as a patient, they're vitalistic chiropractors. And so I got in on what chiropractic can mean for the whole body, really outside of, or really challenging what chiropractic kind of has always been noted as is, back and joint pain and removing joints kind of thing. And so I was really fortunate in that sense to have an understanding of chiropractic as a patient, that chiropractic is more than that. It's really whole body, inside out healing. Um, and that it is your body doing the healing. That was communicated early on for me. So I was very fortunate that that's what I walked into chiropractic school with. The hardest part, it's been hard but also exciting, is figuring out chiropractic, because I did have such a quick transition. I kind of knew that going into it, but like I didn't know what chiropractic was. Like I didn't, through school in my undergrad, like we have all these classes in anatomy and physiology and learning what the body does, but there's such this, the body is such a beautiful masterpiece in its design, its perfect design, and what it does and the healing that takes place. And when you just sitting down and processing that and processing what we as chiropractors are empowering the body to do, that was honestly really hard. Like, and I found myself challenging that a lot. Not challenging in the sense of arguing with it, but wanting to know why and wanting to figure it out. And just at times relying on that faith and belief in what the body can do. There's a lot of school that's very sciencey, especially when you first start out. And it's really hard to see that this is when you have this vision of this is the chiropractor that I want to be. This is how I want to practice, and this is what I want to do. And then you step into your first try, and you're in, just classes that are the most basic of sciences. And you're like, I thought this was chiropractic school, and they all matter so much. And it's hard to keep that, especially in the midst of COVID. You're sitting at home, and I actually also kept my full-time job for the first trimester. So I'm working 40 hours a week and doing school in the evenings, all online, and taking these hard science classes right at the beginning, and cells and tissue and biochem, and what else did I have? Anatomy. I can't even remember all the classes, but it's been a long time ago. And thinking like, okay, but when does chiropractic come into this? When does chiropractic, when do I get to like learn about adjusting and learn about the different setups and all the things that I experienced as a patient? When does that come into play? And so I had a really hard time honing in on that stuff, knowing that it was going to come back and be super important. I found myself lately, like I said, I'm retaking a section of boards, and that was one thing. Like, I wish I would have paid a little bit more attention in the beginning, because it does come full circle, and a lot of people don't tell you that. Well, a lot of people tell you that, but it's hard to believe that, especially in this online setting. So I'm hopeful that as a lot of things are transitioning back on campus, students will have that experience a little bit better. But that was hard at the beginning. As far as now, so I actually start Tri-7 at the beginning of May. So it'll be my last trimester before I start clinic. And now the hardest part is figuring out, putting all these pieces together of what I've learned and now how I want to practice. How do I want to serve? Making sure that I serve patients with love and kindness and compassion every time that I step up to the table. Kind of having those self-checks regularly, checking in on myself. Really, I feel like this is a period of preparing my heart to serve for the rest of my life. It's kind of that in school, So try 1, 2, and 3 is like really like working up to it. 4 and 5, and I know not everybody does trimesters, but we do. We do 10 trimesters. 7 are in class, and then 8, 9, and 10 are in clinic. And then I know a lot of people do quarters, but try 4 and 5 right about the middle. It gets really hard and really tough. That's when a lot of people drop. And then try 6 and 7 are really preparing you for clinic. So honing in on those clinical skills. For me, that's been an easier part. I'm very hands-on. Obviously, adjusting and chiropractic is what I want to do for the rest of my life, so it comes a little easier. And so this time, I feel like I've been able to pull back on the energy that's been put towards exams and studying, just because of kind of how the program works. And I've been able to really hone in on kind of self-development in preparing my heart to be a doctor. In August, in like 5 months, I like literally start practicing as a doctor and adjusting people on a regular basis in clinic, and seeing them for their real life problems. Like, it's not just a student that I'm in full spine adjusting. My friend that, we practice together all the time, it's real people. And that's like I think if I had to, kind of brings up a point going back to what you said about chiropractic school is easy to get into and being a fallback. If somebody is listening to this right now and they think that chiropractic school is going to be a fallback, maybe that's how you feel. Maybe it is your purpose and that's how it's navigating you there. But if you continue to feel like chiropractic is a fallback, I hope you find something else to get into. It's a disservice to what we do as chiropractors to just jump into this because it's easy, because we do change lives. There are miracles that happen with hands, just these hands, or an instrument, but we're empowering the body. And so I'm not saying, I think we can use so many chiropractors in this world, but we need chiropractors who are in it for the right reasons. Chiropractors who are wanting to facilitate healing and wanting to hit the ground running. Because, it's, when people ask me like how school's going all the time, like family or friends or whatever, and I'm like, I've kind of been using this like kind of boat and waters analogy. And like for so long, it felt like I was navigating these river rapids, and I was like in a pontoon. Like I was in a pontoon boat trying to navigate river rapids, and it just never was working out. Like I was making it, like my boat wasn't necessarily sinking, but I was like hitting rocks, couldn't make it, and just felt so hard. Since being in chiropractic school, like the waters didn't change, but my boat did. I'm now in like a raft made for the rapids. And so my equipment changed, and my perception of life and my perception of my purpose changed. And that's like, again, when you find the purpose, it's not easy, but you feel equipped and you feel prepared for what's about to come at you. And I feel like I've been building my raft since I started chiropractic school, and it's just gotten stronger. I have no doubt that this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. I have no doubt that being a doctor of chiropractic, and it's just, I honestly can't even put it into words. Like, I just feel speechless right now that like this is literally what I get to do with my life. I feel so much joy and so much thankfulness that like the path that God had laid out for me became so obvious at some point. And people say that all the time. They're like, when you know, like when you're in the right job or with the right person or whatever the situation is, they're like, when you know. And I fought that for so long. I was like, well, I know this is what I'm supposed to do, but it doesn't feel like I know. And I was just, again, like I was waiting for the opportunity to present itself. And, but like, as soon as it did, I'm like, okay, so that's what they mean by when you know. And it's good to feel that. It's good to feel that hope in the hard, and that promise in the heart, and that In just a year and 4 months, I graduate and I will be Dr. Kylie Trower, and I will be, taking steps to open a practice and serve patients for X amount of years, facilitate healing and change lives. I know my life's been changed by it. So, and I think like maybe somebody's watching this and they're thinking about chiropractic, or maybe they just stumbled across it. I don't know. But whatever it is, like when, we talk about alignment in the body, and, when our body's in alignment, then we're healthier and we're happier and all these different things. And, we can apply that same concept to our purpose. When things are in alignment, things work out. It's like the train tracks are working. Everything's going smooth. We're equipped from getting to point A to point B. Like, are you equipped to get from point A to point B with the right equipment? And that's where I found myself. I was like, I'm ready for it to be hard. I'll say one more thing, because some people might actually really relate to this. Hard for me was moving away from home. I will say that. Maybe step outside of school. The transition of being in a big city. Like I said, I'm from small town Oklahoma. Dallas was a shock. I thought if you would have asked me like a year before I moved down here if I could like move to New York City and make it, I would have been like, oh yeah, for sure. Like, I can do anything. I'm a very extroverted people person. No, like Dallas has been a reality check of I'm not big city at all. And so there's a challenge in that too, especially if you're going to chiropractic school and there isn't a school within driving distance of your, where you grew up or where you already live. And that's a challenge, but it's an exciting challenge as well. Also, again, I know I keep saying it, but it's hopeful and promising, and that hard is hard, but what lens are you looking at it through? Or what lens have you put in front of it? And so, again, the experiences that have come with it have been phenomenal. The people that I've met are phenomenal. But, it's been a challenge. It has been. So a good challenge, but still a challenge.
Two things. I just want to acknowledge that whoever our listener is somebody considering going to chiropractic school, and they're still watching you. So Perfect. You just had like a bit of a 17 to 19 minute reflection right there. And I just want to acknowledge that whatever you shared, it kept their attention. They're still here. I want to keep this. I want to keep this relevant. Keep this relevant to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you feel about just like the investment that you're making financially in the program, and also just what frameworks are you really enjoying right now? Because obviously you've gotten some new exposures. I was introduced to you through a good friend of mine who teaches seminars, and not that you have to go deep in this question. I am going to ask you to go deep a little bit later if now is not the right time, because that might not be super relevant to this pre-Chiro student, but there are elements to that seminar which relate to everybody. And if you could just kind of touch on the financial commitment to school, and then also what have you gotten exposure to in school, which has really helped lift your spirit as far as like the skills you've developed and what you're coming into clinic with.
Yeah. Financially, I don't want to like try and sugarcoat anything. Like, it's hard and it's expensive. But you take out student loans and you do what you have to do. School's expensive in general. But like, I know I keep saying it, but it's like, it's hard and it's hard to make ends meet, but it's hopeful. There's a purpose behind it. And there's a purpose driving you through that hard time. I was fortunate enough that I had an undergraduate scholarship. So I didn't come into school necessarily with any debt, at least school-based debt. Just keep it about school finances. But yeah, I've taken out a scholarship. I do work part-time. to help make ends meet and help supplement the way that I want to live my life. But I take out loans. I take out loans for, you have to pay for boards and you have to pay for seminars, which I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, seminars all the time. And finding a place to live. And like I said, I don't know where people might come from places that are actually more expensive than wherever they go to school. For me, that was not the case. It's a lot different paying for an apartment. I mean, I could get a house for what I'm paying for an apartment here. Like, that's the difference. That was a big shock. But at no point have I questioned, is it worth it? It's absolutely worth it. There's something to be said. I think chiropractic and the doctorate degree that comes with that gets overlooked a lot. There's not a lot of recognition for the fact that we are doctors and the training that we go through and the classes that we take. And so I knew, thinking I was going to go to medical school, I already had expected that I was going to have this large debt in front of me. So that did kind of just shifted and transitioned, that I knew it was going to cost me money. But it's just, if you're pursuing any kind of graduate degree, it's going to cost you money. I mean, any degree really costs you money. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But there's value in it, and that's why. Being a chiropractor is so valuable. It shouldn't be cheap. I don't think it should be any cheaper. It needs to be recognized as what it is, and that you are pursuing a doctorate degree. You are going to be a doctor, a DC. Your hands will be like literally adjusting people every day. And so I think the really cool thing is you're investing in yourself. You're not investing like you're investing in your full body and your mind and your how your body is actually going to serve people, versus because there is that physical training of adjusting skills. But it's not like you're paying money to, and not to dog on any other profession, but surgeons also use their hands as well. And I recognize that, but sometimes you pay money and it's I don't know. I'll just get back to this.
No. Just to touch on that point and just help you drive that point home is I often joke and I say I should donate these to a museum later on in life, or even right now. And I'm young still, but what these hands have been able to do for people is, worth. It's their museum quality. Let's put it that way.
These are your tools, and you're investing in your tools. At the same time, you're investing in your mind, and they are one. There is a connection between your mind and your tools that you're using, and your tools are unique to you. Nobody else has these, and so there's so much value in it, and that's been the thing. People talk about, and actually, this is something that the Samurai series talks about a lot too. Is the seminar. When you add value, the dollar amount doesn't matter as much as the value that people will pay for the value of what you're giving them. So if you're going to get into chiropractic school, hone in on that. All through school, you're building your value as a doctor. There is something that you're going to sell. It's your adjusting skills, and your role as a doctor. And so take that time as in, it's an investment in yourself. It's an investment in your future. It's an investment in future patients' lives. It's an investment in healing. And to me, when you put it into that perspective, I mean, what is $250,000 in debt? You know what I mean? Yeah, that sucks. But I mean, that's a house. And these are your tools for the rest of your life. So that seems like a lot of money, but there are a lot of people that pay that much money for a lot of things all the time. Houses, property, list could go on and on.
Well, and you're just houses and properties, good debt. There's good debt and bad debt. This is obviously in the good debt category. Yes. This is not you went out and gambled it and lost it. Also, you don't necessarily have to get so intimidated by the amount that you owe back
Mm-hmm.
as much as what your monthly payment is.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not financial advice, but there's ways that you can make your W-2 look as though you're not making that much
Yeah.
money so that it keeps your income-based repayment pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
Like I make six figures, yet my monthly payment on student loans is under $200.
Yeah.
So there's a way to make it so that it's almost a negligible expense. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't hit you so hard as it feels maybe when you're not making money yet. Once you
Right.
start making money, it becomes a smaller and smaller and smaller of importance. So,
Yeah.
uh,
I'll take that as a segue into seminars and talking about that. Um, Seminars are such a beautiful thing. What I love so much about seminars is um, school is great. I can't speak for every school, but from what I've heard, it's a lot of the same. Um, School a lot of times prepares you to pass boards. Um, they do prepare you to be a doctor, but not as much as they should. And they don't prepare you to serve as much as they should. And I think that's just the nature of what school is. That's its purpose. I mean, you think of high school. High school prepares you to get to college, and college prepares you for a career. So chiropractic school prepares you for, well, undergrad prepares you to probably apply for a job, but chiropractic school prepares you to kind of pass boards. Not in totality, but I would say it's on more leaning towards that. And so what I love about seminars is so many times they're led by doctors who are in the midst of practice, in the midst of the grind, in the midst of the service and the love, um, and learning from people who are in the middle of it. Um, there's something like it's just so valuable. Um, when you get into the right seminars, um, really, I don't know. I don't know if there's a bad seminar. I've kind of you asked like what kind of frameworks I've fallen into, and I've kind of been to seminars and different things all across the board. Like, I think it's so important. One thing that I didn't know about chiropractic is how vast it is. So I did know that excuse me, vitalistic chiropractic was kind of this path I wanted to go down and how I wanted to practice. But I'm like, oh my gosh, vitalistic chiropractic has like 85 million paths within vitalistic chiropractic. And there's so many different avenues that you can practice and so many different like niches that you can pull from to create the doctor that you want to be and practice as the doctor you want to be. And so that would be, and kind of, I mean, you can apply this to like, if you are just thinking about going to chiropractic school, when you look up chiropractic, like look up different technique, look up different seminars, look up different kinds of offices. Oh my gosh, like the chiropractic world is so vast and so big. And there are so many different kind of doctors. Even if you think the doctors are the same, I guarantee if you went to go shadow their offices, you would find so many differences, maybe a lot of similarities, but there's so much personality and so much individuality that comes through being a chiropractor that it's so beautiful. What I love about that is that I'm not going to be the chiropractor for everybody. I accept that. I mean, I want a lot of patience, of course, but I recognize that the world needs chiropractors, but they don't need one kind of chiropractor. They need all kinds of chiropractors. And so that's really this beautiful thing of it is that there's this science of chiropractic for sure. And that's a lot of what school gives you. Seminar gives you the art of chiropractic. It gives you the paint and the paintbrushes to begin forming the masterpiece. That is how you will practice. Being able to navigate and interpret the philosophy of chiropractic. you have so much autonomy of how you decide to believe in chiropractic. And that's such a beautiful thing. Um, and that's what seminars give. I don't know if I could lay out the framework for me right now. I think I'm navigating that. I'm in the midst of.
This is a relevant, more specific
Yeah.
question. The seminar that I know you recently attended
Mm-hmm.
is pushing you away from being an associate when you
Yes.
graduate.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about like what the case that was made was to push you away from being an associate and more towards starting your own thing? And also, are you interested in being an associate? Do you have any idea as to like what associate chiropractors make right out of school?
So for me, what I kind of pulled from the seminar and opening your own practice versus becoming an associate was kind of this: why not? Like, why the hell not? I know that sounds like such a simple answer, but there's such a need for chiropractors. And I know being an associate, you will still be a chiropractor, but there's so much opportunity to create and build new offices for you to develop your own craft and be your own kind of doctor and serve how you want to and make money doing so. And that's the big thing also. Like, it would be silly to ignore the fact that, we want to serve people, but we also want to make a living and provide for families and provide for ourselves, have the freedom to live life fully in the full expression of life. And just in the world that we live in, obviously, financial income is part of that. And so for me, it was really, I do plan to open as soon as I can after graduation. And it's just been this, like, I can do it. Like, why not? I don't want to, I do feel like if people, you have to have that drive to do that though. Some people don't feel like opening is the option for them and they need to, or they want to associate. And I think that's perfectly fine. What I don't want, and what I think is really a driving piece of that seminar, is you don't have to associate. Like, we are in school, we're equipped and kind of taught, like, to go slow, baby steps. You should associate, get your feet wet, blah, 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 blah. If that's the path for you, then okay, but don't be bullied into that path. Have the courage and have the guts to really think about it, really process it. And I think that's something else that people do. They ignore it until it's graduation, and they're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Which is another thing in Samurai that's been like, listen, like, this is coming, like, figure out what you want to do, take the steps and do it, which Samurai is in the seminar for those of you who are listening. Shout out to Dr. Paul. And so don't be scared. Like, and I think that's what so many people find themselves, they're scared to do it because they don't know if they can. I've seen handfuls of practices that are cash-based, open right after graduation. I mean, just all these beautiful things that are laid out. But I think it's about listening to the universe, and listening to God, and whatever that looks like for you, follow that. Whatever feels true in here, follow it. Be in alignment with what's in here, not with what everybody else is telling you. So associating, I don't want to say it's bad, because I know great chiropractors and great offices who are looking for phenomenal associates. And I can think of so many current students who would fill those associating roles in these beautiful practices so well. I know some who have taken associate positions, and phenomenal, like, once in a lifetime to associate for this doctor opportunities. For me, that's not what I'm called to right now. And so I think it's just, you really learn in school, if you're willing to. You learn how to flow through the plan. So you make a plan, but you have to be willing to flow and navigate with what comes. Pulling pieces from seminars, pulling things from what you hear from other doctors, what you hear in class, what you hear from other students, what you hear from life. I mean, you have to acknowledge that you have a personal life outside of school. A lot of times they all blend together once you're in the middle of it, but especially, I'm not married or anything, but I know a lot of people in my class, they are married and they do have kids. And so you have to just be willing to plan and prepare, but also be willing to accept the changes that come with that. And that's where I found myself lately is here's what I have. I'm a type A personality and I have like the next 10 steps in 12 different directions planned out. That's just the kind of person that I am. But I found myself so many times that something's presented itself and I'm like, I don't have a plan for this. This is not one of the 10 paths that I had planned out, but I'm trusting and I'm going down it. So I think it's about, there's something so beautiful about opening and creating this masterpiece within a practice and your craft as well. But I think at the end of the day, it's really about what's in alignment. I said it a while ago, but like what's in alignment with your heart. Don't be bullied into something. And I say bullied because a lot of times it's like, you can't do that. Like won't be successful. That's like what it is. Like you won't be successful if you open your own practice, or you won't last very long if you open your own practice. And that's just a load of crap. Cause I've seen it. I know you've seen it. A lot of people have seen it.
I mean, just to speak from experience, because I can't really say anything specific about somebody else's experience. I got out of school and I really focused really strongly on the adjusting and the art and not so much on the business. And I fell back on like what I was familiar with before chiropractic school, which was like promoting parties. So I would like go up to people on the street and hand them a flyer. So I like got into like just going up to people on the street and handing them my card. And I had heard this chiropractor who was relatively well known come into my class and say that he used to just stand on the corner and say, "Hey, I'm a chiropractor. My office is right down the street. If I could ever be of service to you or your family, please come and check me out or come see me." And just doing that and not knowing anybody in the area that I opened in, like my life would have been so different if I would have went back, or my practice experience of starting up would have been so different if I went back to the small town that I grew up in. But I just went to the next big city closest to my chiropractic school, and I think I grossed like $70,000 with no staff and by myself. And I don't know what the numbers are for salaried positions on associates these days, but I would guess that they're less than that. And obviously I had an overhead, and obviously that wasn't my net, that wasn't my bottom line. However, I did much more than that my second year, much more than that my third year, and every single year for the last 9 years, it's gotten better and better and better, my income. So, and I still don't really market well. I don't really pay for advertising. I do have a partner now that I practice with, and she's been there since early on. But I guess my point is like, yeah, we all have this beautiful struggle in the beginning. I always would say to my friends that were not yet graduating that, you know, I went out and I was one of the first people that graduated out of my like group of friends and started my own practice. I would always say like, you can go and become an associate and learn somebody else's systems and procedures and experience success from what they created. And then eventually you're going to start your own thing after that. And you might realize that when you start your own thing, you're not them. So why not just start your own thing from the start and then learn through your own experience, which is what chiropractic is really pushing you to do, is listen to what's within, not what's out there. Exactly. So I totally hear you, and I'm in alignment with what you're saying. That was what this prospective student asked you, is what is an average salary as an associate chiropractor right out of school? That was their question. Yeah. And I just I really love your answer, and I'm glad that we kind of went down that rabbit hole.
I don't have that answer. That's not something it's not my plan, so I don't really keep that information in the back of my mind. But there's something you said that I want to talk about. You mentioned that you can go work for somebody and like figure out how you want to practice and all of that as associating. There's no reason you can't do that as a student. And that's, again, what seminars and shadowing people, there's an opportunity that while you're learning in school to learn from other doctors. And that's so important. Like, you don't have to wait till you graduate to figure out what kind of doctor you want to be. Following what's within.
Can you get really specific with that now and tell me what goes through your mind and your heart when you enter into an office? What are you observing?
Yeah.
What are you keying in on? What are some insights that maybe you've gained recently, or just that you recommend a student intend to gain when they go and visit offices?
So it's shifted a little bit over the last few months, especially the closer I get to creating the business plan and working towards opening. When I started shadowing or seminars, a lot of the adjusting, like I was trying to figure out chiropractic. So I was watching how doctors were interacting with their patients. I mean, as intense as I could, focus in on how they were adjusting, hand placement, tissue pull, breath, all of the attention and focus that they were giving in through the adjusting. Conversations. There was another doctor there. Conversations that they were having with each other. Conversations about progress scans or x-rays or whatever kind of imaging technology that they did, or scans. Honing in on those pieces of it because I was trying to figure out chiropractic. That shifted a little bit. And I feel like I notice every little thing. When I walk into a practice, like I notice how the lobby is set up. I notice where the front desk is. I notice the personalities of the CAs. I notice how the doctors are now interacting with people in the waiting room, how they're interacting with kids, parents, moms, how families are interacting with other families, where the toy room is. That's a little more specific to pediatric practices. But where that setup is, how are they open adjusting? Are they closed adjusting? If they are closed adjusting, how are their rooms set up? Are they like truly closed adjusting, or are they like more cubicle style adjusting? What systems are they using? I mean, literally everything from A to Z.
What types of systems are you talking about?
The systems that the technology that chiropractic office is using to run their patients, all patient information, how patients are paying, their scheduling, all of that, how they're keeping track of patient progress. Basically the technology side of what's the behind the scenes of that office. And I think one of the biggest things is just you notice all the different pieces that everybody has. And like you get to pull from, I don't really like what this doctor's doing. I really love what this doctor's doing. I don't like this, but I love this from this office. So you get to like begin to form. It starts as like how you want to practice with the art. And then if you really hone in on it, which is where I've been lately, you pull in the business pieces. And that builds, like, try one. Like, I do not recommend you start thinking about your business plan. There's a few steps. But that's also what seminars are good for. One like Samurai that teaches everything from art to communication to business. And there's a lot that are more art and adjusting based, and there are some that are just business based. And so you just be willing and open to explore everything. I think that would be, if I had to pull from, I've been pretty open to things and where I'm going to go as far as like different seminars and stuff that I attend. But if at times I have felt myself pulled to certain types of seminars, sticking with kind of the same group of people. And not that that's a mistake, but as soon as I jump into something new, I'm like, okay, like I need to, like, don't make the mistake of attending and kind of you find your niche and you just stay in this one lane the whole time, because there's so much more to explore. And even if you don't like it, like it's good to know that you don't like it. That's important. If you attend a seminar and you're like, that is not how I'm going to practice at all, that's good. Like, you know, because it's always like this, what if? So it's, and if you're like just exploring chiropractic, like looking to go to chiropractic school, when you are, I kind of talked about it earlier, but when you are looking up different things about chiropractic, like look up pediatric chiropractic, look up sports chiropractic, look it all up. What'll really blow your mind if you're not super experienced with chiropractic is look up the different things that chiropractic helps with. Look up chiropractic in ADHD for children. Look up chiropractic in autism. Look up chiropractic in infertility. You talk about things that'll really like kind of not really put you in your place, but like make you step back and realize like, oh my gosh, like there's so much. There's so many different ways that chiropractic can step up and help people, and we need more people to do that. And so whatever it is, like if there's one thing, maybe it's something like something for you personal, or a family member has like some kind of illness or they've been diagnosed with something, how can chiropractic help? Because I guarantee it can. You know, so explore before school and throughout school. Explore everything. Be willing to explore everything, whether you don't like it or you do like it. I actually wrote this down. I was thinking about it, and like having a clear vision of the future is like good and it's strong and it feels good to have that. But having an unclear vision is not wrong. It's not being unclear. When something's unclear, it's fuzzy, it's opportunity to explore more, to dive deeper, be open to the change. And so whether that's before school or in school, or honestly, even after school, after you graduate, that sounded weird. But like if things are unclear, don't like panic and be frightened from that. Like, oh, this doesn't make sense. So that can't be what's made for me. That can't be where I'm supposed to be. And that can't be this purpose that I have, because it doesn't make sense and it's not unclear. Just dive deeper into it. Put the work in, explore it a little bit harder, pray about it, meditate on it, and make it clear. Because I think it will be clear if it's wrong for you, for sure. The further you get into it, the harder it becomes, the more hopeless it becomes. But if it's unclear now, like that's okay. That's where I was. And at the moment that the door opened for me, I stepped into it and I was willing to listen. And I dove deeper into it. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is chiropractic? And it was pretty quick. But it was like it had always been there. That had always been inside of me. That purpose had always been laid out for me. And it was just like I was just like, okay, where do I go? Where do I go? And it was like, boom, right there. And just like 100 miles an hour since. And I still don't think there's a fully clear picture. The closer I get, the clearer it becomes. But it's fun. It's fun to figure out that clearness. It's fun to explore and dive deeper and figure out. I think a beautiful thing about chiropractic is it when you dive into it really deep, is it really gives you an opportunity to explore yourself. Like really, what does it mean to self-love and to express like the full expression of life, and to feel joy and to feel happiness at your core, to feel like alignment with purpose, joy. For me, like I feel so much joy that my purpose gets to serve people. Like I get to serve people and I get to find joy in that for the rest of my life. And I know I will. Like, I'm not willing to accept anything less. And how exciting that is that I get to be passionate about something. Because it's like, as much as chiropractic serves the patient, it serves the doctor too. And what my experience with people on my table, with when your intention is there, it's an energetic exchange. And with that intention of that energetic exchange, there's so much that goes both ways. And it's such a beautiful thing. It's not a transaction. It's an experience between two souls. And that's, I don't know. I kind of went a little deep there, but like, just expressing the beautiful thing that chiropractic is. I didn't know that. I didn't know that till I was 23 years old. I'm thankful that I didn't, because my, everything I went through, like, that got me here. I was at a point in my life that I was ready to receive that. And, yeah, it's just so beautiful, and it's so amazing, and all the opportunities that it presents you with. The fact that, like, I'm going to Mexico next week on a mission trip, and it's just like,
which one?
I'm going on Dr. Lauren Kodik's NICAO trip to Sayulita, Mexico. And like, yes, I have to take my table, but like these are it. I heard somebody say this one time, like, I was actually at a seminar and we were talking about our whys, why chiropractic, and this girl said, one of my friends, she was like, it's the closest thing that I felt to God's work, the closest thing I can get to God's work. And ever since I heard her say that, it's just been this, like, you have to recognize what these hands can do, like what the body can do. When you want to put chiropractic, call it chiropractic, like, I think that's a beautiful thing. But what does it mean? Like, what is chiropractic? And so that would be the only other piece of advice that I have for somebody, like, not to say that you can't figure it out in school. I think that's what school's for. But, like, now before school, find the spark, because that spark will carry you through school. You will only begin to build that flame. Start the foundation now. If you've never been adjusted, go get adjusted by a good chiropractor. If you can get in and get adjusted by different chiropractors, then do that. Go, like, talk to chiropractors, reach out to chiropractors. Like, I'm exploring this. What does chiropractic mean to you? What got you into chiropractic? That's my favorite question to ask people. And it's exactly like this podcast that you're doing. Like, what got you into chiropractic? Because everybody's story is so different. Even if it seems so similar, it's so different. And it's just so beautiful. There's so much individuality.
I always like to shift the focus at the end of the podcast, or at least this, like, last part, because I want to honor your time. I do want to really quickly reflect that, yes, school is just a period of time, right? Like, we call it school, but it's really just a period of time where we go through experiences and grow. All right, this is more self-serving to the project, not self to me, but to the project, and to support the future generations of prospective students. But if we're looking at your reflection back on the MCATs and how you took them twice, and then you spent all this money applying to schools, obviously you don't have to do that with chiropractic. That's a huge amount of energy and resources that could be applied to something else. If we're creating a new set of standards for the incoming chiropractic student that are independent of grade GPAs and are independent of letters of recommendation and personal paper position statement, and are not being promoted by admissions departments per se, but are being more promoted by the profession and people such as yourself who recognize the beautiful struggle of becoming a chiropractor, what are some of the maybe amount of experiential hours spent in an office, amount of experiential hours getting adjusted, maybe the amount of resources that we ask incoming students to go through? What would be
Mhm.
some creative way that you could create some standards? I was recently thinking a couple days ago, like n- identify how many MCAT questions there are, and
Mhm.
then throughout the period of time leading up to chiropractic school, ask that many questions of people, just
Mhm.
so we could say that you're going to be asked just as many questions as an incoming medical student is, but they're going to
Yeah.
be completely different questions.
Yeah. That's hard. That's hard for me to answer because I was one of those students that had no experience. I did just kind of jump in and I was like, well, luckily I have the grades and I have the GPA because I just was there was just there was a crossover with my application and like steps I'd taken for medical school crossing over to applying to chiropractic school. Um, so that's hard for me to answer because I'm like, well, would I have made it in? I know I would have because it's my purpose, but
No, no,
man,
no. I hear you. And I actually really like the resistance. We don't have to agree with one another as well,
yeah,
because I've had many chiropractors tell me, look, chiropractic chooses you. You don't choose chiropractic.
right.
And the more that I make this a logical, rational, step by step process to go to
Mm-hmm.
chiropractic school, the less
Yeah,
special that
yeah,
experience becomes when somebody looks back on it.
yeah.
And the more like kind of, yeah, like structure that
I
there is, the less flexibility there
right,
is for somebody to come from diverse backgrounds.
right.
But I like exploring this question with people.
I would say not so much on the admission side. Um, I really do think one reason I think it's so hard to get into medical school because so many people are applying to medical school, but I think probably there are a lot of people like me who feel like medical school is the only option. They know they want to serve and they know they want to be a doctor or treat patients, so to say. And it's like, okay, well, do I go down the nurse route or do I try and become a doctor? So I would say maybe not so much on the um, admission side, but maybe I'll put like for the doctors on here that might be listening. Um, I think chiropractors could show up more to college career fairs, different things like that. I think at this point for me and what I see, students, undergraduate students just need to know that chiropractic does exist. Chiropractic is for everybody. Chiropractic is not for your 65-year-old dad who has back pain and shoulder pain, or the athlete who injures himself, or the car wreck victim who now has neck pain. Like, yes, it's for them, but it's for people like me, people who have endocrine and hormone disorders, who are their hormones are dysregulated. It's for people who have anxiety and people who have depression, and people who are struggling to get pregnant, and people who are having trouble sleeping. And I think that's the time that we're in. I think maybe it's not so much on the admission side because like it is easy to get in. I'm thankful it was easy to get in. I'll just be honest with you because I had been through all this struggle. um, I mean, I was probably $3,000 into applying to medical school, and that's not even counting the MCAT. That's just applications. And when I got on the phone that one day and I talked to the lady, and she was like, yeah, just submit your application and we'll be in touch with you and blah blah blah. And 5 days later I had a call from an advisor saying, congratulations, you're in. School starts in 2 weeks. You want to jump in? And I'm like, that's so beautiful that I think as a chiropractic community, it does have its pros and cons, but I think those pros outweigh it. And that maybe we are, not we are, but chiropractic is a fallback for people. But maybe that's exactly how we're getting people into their purpose. Maybe they are falling back, but they're falling back into their purpose. Um, and so
I
I think,
absolutely agree with you.
yeah,
And if we're talking about consciously promoting
mm-hmm,
chiropractic
right.
to attract the right people, to
Mm-hmm.
help people that are not the right people to become chiropractors say, okay, this is not the right path for me.
Right.
We need to lead by example, but we also need to
Mm-hmm.
create a structure that's supportive
Yes.
for that prospective student, because I believe that there's so many people that are in pre-med
Mm-hmm.
because there's an MCAT, that they have something to work towards. There's
Mhm.
like a shiny object of like becoming a doctor.
Right.
But then there's also a culture that has been
Mhm.
invested in and created and
Yeah.
curated and continues to develop and blossom that we
Mhm.
call pre-med student culture. And
Yeah.
that might be very competitive and anxiety producing, and that might create a lot of depression in the
Mhm.
applicants that worked 4 years just to be denied and
For
told they're
sure.
not good enough.
For
And
sure.
so to me, that's a huge opportunity for chiropractic
Mhm.
right there.
Mhm. I totally agree. I was one of those people. Um, it's hard to say what I would go back and change and at what moment I wish like chiropractic light bulb would have gone off for me. Because I do think it all happened exactly how it was supposed to for me. A lot of other life things happened in that same time frame. And it was just like perfect moment. Um, but I do agree that if there was more of a pre-Chiro culture, as you say, um, grabbing students when they're at that moment of trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives, um, could really be influential. Um, like I said, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I see what you're saying, and I do agree that for me, I think first step is just one, letting students know that chiropractic exists. I don't think enough people know principle based chiropractic exists. It's joint pain, back pain. You go for 4 or 5 adjustments, and then you're done. And that's the other thing too. Like 20-year-olds are not looking for, you know, most 20-year-olds I'll say are not looking for, joint pain relief to be even exposed to chiropractic. So um, this communication and promoting chiropractic for what it is, and then navigating that towards, okay, you know what it is, so here's how we get you to it. Um, it needs a lot more explanation or exploration, and a lot more intention. And I think this project that you have is a beautiful thing for that. I'm
Two
so
more things
excited.
really quick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This project can spark an interest in somebody such as
Mm-hmm.
yourself who's more
Yeah.
powerful than we could put words into, and say there's two things. If chiropractic is starting in a new country, how are we attracting people to understand what this new profession is that's entered
Mm-hmm.
into their country? And there's a school that you could go to. What is it? Pre-Chiro is necessary. The second thing is, like you said, there's 20-year-olds that don't need any
Right.
pain relief. What if there were chiropractors in their community or campus health centers that were not there for pain relief, that were
Exactly.
there to educate them and that were there to educate the campus
Mm-hmm.
in conjunction with a pre-Chiro club that was started up by the students and
Mm-hmm.
treated as their first practice so that they could get experience communicating something unfamiliar to a new community that doesn't have
Yeah.
exposure to chiropractic? What about these
Mm-hmm.
possibilities that sprout out as a result of a culture being created?
Yeah. There are there are so many different that actually I was in a the pre-med club on our campus, and just all the things we did. There's no reason. I just think of all the avenues that um, when you talk about health fairs and different things like that, like there are so many different places that there is an opening for chiropractic. It's just a matter of, do we have what it takes, and are we equipped, or are we ready? Really, I think we're fully equipped. Chiropractic is fully equipped, but is there somebody who's ready to step in and fill that space? Because I think that's what it right now it seems to be like. Everybody goes to the doctor. Like from the day you're born, you're probably born at a hospital, and you go to the doctor for your checkup, and you're sick as a kid or whatever. Everybody knows what an MD and a DO is, because everybody goes all the time, for the most part. And so right now there still has to be that bridge built, of students knowing, and people. I think that's what it comes down to, is like it's not so much about students, but it's about people. Do people know what chiropractic is? Do they know what chiropractic can do? Because if mom and dad knows what chiropractic is, and then they start their kids in chiropractic care, those kids grow up, and is chiropractic for them? Did chiropractic change their lives as a kid? Do they understand what chiropractic is? Real chiropractic. Um, to even have that option to explore. And so like, you know, this could go so much deeper in the fact in that our world does not recognize, in reality, our society does not recognize the value of chiropractic yet. And I think we're in that transitional period. Like you talk about everything that's gone on in the world for the past 2 years. And right now, this opportunity to step up and do something and show chiropractic, to spark what chiropractic is, and that transitions to care for families, and then that transitions to people knowing about chiropractic. And I think that trickles into so many other things for students.
I
knowing.
acknowledge, like you, I acknowledge all the
Yeah.
networks that are already in place, all the structure that's already in place. You got state associations with their chiropractic paying members. Then you've got chiropractic schools with their chiropractic students that are into different things. Yeah. The pre-chiro students can get connected. So my thesis on this whole project, this is kind of like my PhD that I've been on this path on since I got out of school, is the primary subluxation in the profession is that the students, like, let's say you went to a seminar called Samurai Series, and the Samurai seminar connected you to somebody at Palmer, Florida, connected you to somebody at another school, and you all met there. You had shared common experiences, you had shared common interests, but then after that, because you're at different schools, because you're in these little bubbles, you never talk to each other ever again. That's a huge missed opportunity. We have these networks that exist, but none of the networks are connected. So the primary subluxation of the profession is that the brain, which is like the seminars, the organizations, the schools, are not connected to the tissue cell, which is the students.
Yeah.
And I believe we're not even acknowledging pre-chiro students as being a recognized population of people that need to be served, right? It's kind of like going to a chiropractor for back pain and not knowing that you can go to the chiropractor for all these other things.
Right.
It's like our profession is made up of chiropractors and chiropractic students. That's it. In the mind of the average chiropractic student or chiropractor. They don't even consider these other networks that have been established as being important. Like even your admissions programs at all these schools, they have networks of chiropractors that host prospective student nights, or that go out to these health fairs that you talk about, or they go out and speak at career fairs to high school students and college students. But yet none of these networks are talking to each other as a unified, like, okay, like how can we all work together, pool our funds, like actually make this pre-chiro population something that is front and center on the agenda of the profession.
Yeah, and definitely there's such an opportunity for that. Really kind of my mind got going on, like, we have all these clubs and stuff on campus, and I know every school does, and a lot of them have the same. So, you know, what if even keeping it at a more local level, but like, what if our clubs did reach out to college? Like, maybe if it's not chiropractors going to these career fairs, but it's like actual students and clubs on campus. Pre-chiro club that reaches out to local high schools or local colleges, and goes and hosts these, you know, chiropractic nights, exploring what chiropractic is. Almost like a lot of seminars have a philosophy night to kick it off, but what if we did one that was open to like undergraduate students? And connecting that with, there are a lot of clubs that are connected within different colleges or different chiropractic schools, and then they connect. And really there is an opportunity to, there are like all these pieces happening in all this different direction. If we bring it together, what could that be in this beautiful centerpiece? And I do think there's such an opportunity for that. It makes me excited to see like where it goes. Excited and thankful to be a part of this podcast, and to like be a part of this project that you're doing. Because I do think not enough people know what chiropractic is. Like, one, as a patient, but also like the beautiful thing that is being a chiropractor, being a doctor. Um, excuse me. So there really is such a beautiful opportunity for that growth and expansion in that sense. And it's got to start somewhere. And I think it's starting here. Like, this is definitely pushing it off. And I think it really gets me thinking about like opportunities and where do I have opportunities? Kind of like, I'm sure you have that same mindset. Like, you hear something and it's like, okay, well, now I feel like I'm supposed to do something about it. So like, what do I do? So
I just want to show you the expansion of how my vision has crystallized from going to chiropractic school, just like you, of like being focused in a different direction, and then discovering chiropractic in the 11th hour, and then deciding I want to go to chiropractic school, and then going to the wrong school, and then transferring schools, and then discovering how much different resources are available at this new school that I'm at that are never going to be available to the students at the previous school I was at. And then going through the program, hearing all these things, that the program just gets you your license. It doesn't prepare you to be a chiropractor. And that the politics of chiropractic are all at odds with each other, and everybody's against each other, and it limits the potential. Yet the philosophy of chiropractic is reach your potential, expand beyond your wildest visions, what's possible for you in this lifetime. And it's incongruent for the profession to continue and be perpetuating this sort of infighting. And I think that the way that it gets healed or it gets shifted or adjusted is that we've got incoming students with shared experiences that have respect for one another, that work together to improve the profession, and they go out into practice having had that type of experience and culture created amongst students around the country without having to try so hard. I think that, like, when you just described like chiropractic students starting a pre-chiro club and then going to college campuses, that's a lot of work. I think that if chiropractic students can like just be given an opportunity to get a job and be paid to mentor pre-chiro clubs and support them in any way they can, and if like the BGI club at Parker could talk to the BGI club at Life West, or the Gonstead club could talk to the Gonstead club and be like, okay, like, what are the central core pieces to this approach? And like, how can we exemplify it as beautifully as possible in this iteration, in this generation, so that the next generation has a clearer understanding based on our understanding of like what this is, and they can get to it faster, and that could help them potentially explore all these different things. Because quite honestly, no chiropractic student has time for functional medicine. They don't have time for functional neurology unless they plan to just practice functional medicine or just practice functional neurology. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no time for studying fertility and all the different variations of blood profiles and all these different like supplement protocols. Like, it gets so complicated, and you see students that like get exposed to it on one weekend, and then it's just like blowing their mind, and they're like, okay, that's my focus now. And then they go to an adjusting seminar and they're like, that's my focus. And they're going in all these different directions, and it's like pulling them apart, and then they don't go deep with anything. They just stay really superficial with a lot of things. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that's what pre-chiro should be about. It should be very superficial with a lot of things, and then you go deep once you go to school with a clear focus on like why you're going to school, what you want to focus on, what you want to study. And then you have a longer runway. So when you get to this place, because I've heard you mention it a couple of times on this podcast, you're 3 months out from clinic or 4 months out from clinic, and you know, that's weighing on you. You're a year and a half out from graduation. That's weighing on you. You're like you're measuring it all based on time that you have to get prepared to do what you're about to do. And it's like, what if you had an extra 3.5 years of like runway, so that where you're at now is where you were at like a year ago? Not to say that everything happens for a reason, like you said, but just to say like what's possible if a student really starts early.
I think that, I mean, that's I think that would be great. Like, I'm trying to come up with a different word for that, but like, you know, like you said, you know, everything does happen, but it's like when I think back to how I could have navigated chiropractic, how I could have stepped in to try one, better prepared for what was to come and who I was going to be now. Because like it's been fun to have this quick transition and this quick exploration, but like it's also hard. Like it's hard to go through all these different changes so fast and like okay, I'm going here and I'm going here and I'm like blah 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 blah, and it's like that's kind of how it's been, like figuring out myself. And so I do think having that extra bit of runway, as you said, would be so beneficial. And I'm excited to see where this project goes and to see how it transitions, in that there can be this collective collaboration of chiropractic. In that instead of being divided by our differences, we can be empowered by our differences. Excuse me. And that makes me excited that I think it takes moments like this and people who are willing to, not any avenue is wrong necessarily, but not every avenue is for everybody either. And there's a lot of, what fun is collaboration if everybody believes the exact same thing? You know what I mean? Like it works for a little bit, but once you've laid it out, it's like, all right, well, we've talked about everything. So bringing all those differences together, as you said, different clubs on different campuses, communicating and talking with each other and developing chiropractic across our country rather than within our local unit, can really, once it exponential growth. And that's just how it works, that the more people that get involved, the more people they talk to, and before you know it, there's connection.
The last comment from our viewer is, could it be because some people think chiropractors aren't real doctors, so they would rather go to medical school than chiropractic? And to me, that comment is speaking to the limitations in how far this profession has been able to go as a result of the subluxation that the profession has within.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I think that's absolutely what it is, and that's sad. That's sad that I think a lot of people do feel that way. But I think it's still, keep talking about opportunity, and there's an opportunity to shift the narrative of chiropractic, and that's what we're in the midst of. I think this pre-chiro project can speak to that as well, in that, if people know what chiropractic is and their values added to that, there's recognition of the doctorate degree and being a doctor. So all these pieces play together. And that really, it begins to shift that narrative. Unfortunately, that narrative doesn't shift overnight. We all know that.
What if there was pre-chiro clubs doing presentations at pre-med clubs?
Right. And I think that's a big thing that could be shifted as well. In that being pre-med does not, I think pre-med gets divided into like basically MD or DO, where pre-med could really include anyone from nursing to chiropractic to PAs. And I just think, like you said, there's such, kind of speaking to that division, but across the medical community, there's division as well. And that it almost seems to be like there's such competition between, rather than collaboration. And
there's a lot of doctors actually that are holistic. So it's all about like, can we bring together like the people that are thinking holistically, and then you're exposing undergraduate students to chiropractic because of that.
Right. And I think it's like, you have dentists and you have like all these different niches of doctors, including chiropractic. And it's not like, I don't know, there's such this competition between DC and like DO or MD that we're all fighting each other for patients. But in reality, really, like, we're we're called to the patients that need us, just in the sense that I, as a DC, will not treat a patient's teeth like a dentist. It's the same concept. Like, there's a different role in the treatment of patients and facilitating their healing.
Well, I just want to acknowledge that we kept that prospective student's attention for 129 minutes. 99 minutes, an hour and 29 minutes. And that, to me, speaks to just the pure attractiveness of hearing somebody share what chiropractic is, and in an unfiltered way, and also just being candid about your experience. I think really the fact that somebody just listened to you for an hour and a half, to me, that just continues to validate in my mind that this is what people want. They just don't know that it exists, like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they did know that it existed, they would want more of it. So my big issue is, like, if somebody comes to like a leadership weekend at or Parker seminars, or one of these admissions curated weekends, which is like a lot of seminar speakers, and then like luncheon where they could talk to current students. There's no framework for like, okay, how do we follow up with these students and help set them on a path where there's continuity, where there's progress being made, where they, now that they're clear, this is their path, how do we nurture that? How do we nurture that young baby in chiropractic, that it's so delicate? They could go the next week after an event like that and have a different experience and go off and say, this is like too different for me. It's too many different things. It's confusing me. There's so many incongruencies in the profession depending on what office you walk into. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this project begins to fill that void. I think it's taking off. I can just see it taking off, hopefully fairly quickly. I'm excited to share this and let my peers at Parker see this and hopefully share it. And then that just translates to, kind of that power of social media that we do have, media in general, but especially social media. So thank you to the listener that's on here, for sticking around this long. Sometimes I'm long-winded, like to talk. So I appreciate you reaching out and giving me this opportunity to share. It's nice to have that unfiltered conversation about chiropractic and just like sit and like express all these things that I do feel, the good and the bad and the hard and the easy and the just how good life can be. And so I really appreciate what you're doing and the opportunity to be here.
Thank you as well.